let's go. I'm going to tell you the top 5 things about what you as a clinician never learned in grad school about working with teens. Let's go. First things first, they probably never told you or talked to you or taught you how to talk to a teen who refuses to talk back. They probably also never talked about balancing parent pressure with confidentiality and parenting dynamics. They probably didn't tell you about how to handle real risk with safety planning in a practical situation. They also probably didn't talk to you about how to actually build trust with a teen who's been hurt before or who's experienced therapy harm. But that's where Teens Uncharted comes in. We are here to fill all of those gaps and help support you in your journey in working with teens. So if you want real life skills and working with real teen clients, you're in the right place. Click like, follow, subscribe. I want to help you. I often find that one of the most common posts I get in any of the groups that I'm a part of on social media or any of the clinical groups, it's what do you do when a teen shuts down? So I feel like I have some good answers, so we're going to talk about this. Thing one, when a kid shuts down, the first thing you don't want to do is say, you know, your parents are paying for therapy. You should really utilize this for your own support, or saying they have to talk. Right? They have to open up. None of those things in that moment are valid, nor do they honor what that teen is going through in that period of time. Right? But here are some helpful things that you can do when you have a teen client, or if you have a teenager and you're a parent, these are some helpful things you can do when your kid is shutting down or your client. Thing one, you want to validate, right? Whatever is going on in the moment, this is a big deal. This is really hard. I know that it's hard to talk about it, right? Validation goes so far in letting them know that you can read what's happening for them and that you're not upset that they're shutting down. That's thing one. Thing two is to provide reassurance. So for instance, as a parent, that might look like, honey, there's nothing that we can't solve together. And I want you to know that whatever is happening, we will figure it out, right? If you are a teen therapist and you have a kid who's shutting down, providing reassurance might be like, I'm going to be here and I'm going to sit with you in the silence. I'm going to sit with you in all of the negative feelings, all the hard, sticky, weird, gross things that are happening. I will be here with you, right? Third thing could be acknowledging the silence, right? It seems like this is really hard for you. It sounds like you kind of shut down. You don't look super comfortable talking about this right now, right? Acknowledging those pieces is also going to help them see that you see them and that you're willing to pause and to take a step back and to like do the check-in or to do the, you know, we're going to take a break, etc., right? If I have a kid who's super shut down, sometimes I'll completely even change the topic, right? And it could be something that's like a personal thing for me. It could be like, oh, like, I'm sorry if you hear my dog's barking, right? My dog has been really needy lately, right? Or it could be, you know, if you know something about them that you've connected with, it could be like, oh, hey, like, did you, you know, change the subject, but did you see this thing the other day that happened in this content that you are both aware of, right? Sometimes changing the subject gives them an opportunity to think and breathe and distract themselves and to like have a cognitive conversation that allows them to like take a break from the nervousness or the anxiety that's happening. And then you guys can revisit it when that kid is regulated again, right? The last thing you can do is to offer to play a game, is to offer to have something fun that you guys can do together. One of my favorite things is to pull up the whiteboard on Zoom and is just to literally sit there and draw and color and create like those drawings where it's like you do a line, I do a line, and then we just create something fun together. There's no wrong answer as long as it's not shaming, blaming, dismissing, or pushing. And I think we can acknowledge that sometimes like there should be a push in therapy, but if you have a kid who's super shut down, that is probably not the time to push. So if you are a teen specialist or you're a parent who's been navigating this journey of teens when they shut down, I'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback below. And I think to think about it from their perspective in the most helpful way, if it's parent or provider, is to think about what you would want to receive in a situation where you are shut down. So for instance, if you're at work and you're shut down and you're having a hard time, having a boss who's going to shame it and blame it and like be dismissive and saying you're being a baby or that like you have to push through it or whatever, none of those things are helpful or constructive. What we do want to do is we want to stop and check in with people and really offer that support. So like even though teenagers aren't adults, they're not mini adults, we can sit and think about how would we receive that feedback or that response in a situation where maybe like we were shut down. And I know that everyone is a little bit different, but sometimes thinking about it from your perspective in a situation where like someone is a superior is a helpful exercise to really understand what they're going through when you are dismissive or invalidating or, you know, tell them to suck it up, etc. I get this question a lot, both in my consultation groups and just with other providers. And they always ask, like, what do you do when a teen doesn't want to go to therapy? And my first thing, especially with parents who are struggling with that or other providers who have a teen they're working with who just doesn't want to be there, I always remain really curious. So I want to know and I want to understand who referred them. Why did they think it would be helpful? What is the hesitation behind therapy? What do they think therapy is? And what do they think therapy is not? Do they have concerns or anxieties or fears about what they might talk about in therapy and if there are consequences to those things long term? So for instance, I had this kid I worked with years ago who's probably in his 20s at this point, who had initially come to therapy, was struggling with a lot of different things. A lot of it was environmental. It was like, you know, social situations. It was like parent dynamics, whatever. And this kid, it took so long to create the rapport where he understood that I was there to be like on his side. But one of his biggest fears was that I would tell his parents everything, even though I was pretty straightforward in the beginning about what I would disclose and that we would talk about any of that before it happened. And two, that anything he disclosed in therapy would be things that could be like used against him if he applied for any sort of like National Guard or Marine military service or anything like that. So we had a real conversation over a course of months at this point around what all of that looks like and what the pros and cons were about actually trusting the therapy process. And in the end, he actually decided to go in a different direction with his with his like profession, and then was able to kind of like open up and really kind of dig in. And we had an amazing, you know, relationship. I felt he made so much progress in therapy, but that process of breaking down the fear and anxiety around, you know, actually going to therapy took months, right? And I know that there are a lot of teen providers that if they don't get the connection in the first couple of sessions, they're like, oh, I don't think I can be helpful. But I think like building trust, building consistency, building safety takes time, especially when you have a kid who's maybe coming from a chaotic environment or a situation where they just don't trust. They don't trust easily. So when your teen doesn't want to go to therapy, don't force them to, right? B, if you have a kid who doesn't want to go, I would really be curious about why. Why don't you want to go? What is about this? What is it about therapy that you just don't want to do? You know, thing C, if they are really hesitant, I would want to understand what the fears and anxieties are. I would want to understand what the vulnerabilities are. And then the other piece is I would want to understand for them, like, what could the benefits be of therapy? So if you have a kid who's really struggling, let's say with like OCD or like body focused repetitive behavior, and they're like, I don't want to go. To me, that would be a total indication of they want to hold on to their like coping skill. They want to hold on to the way, you know, that they kind of process information and deal with things. And maybe they're not ready for straight up like, you know, ERP or other types of like OCD focused behavior, but they could do really well with a general therapist who just like wants to explore relationship dynamics and support in school and like those pieces. I would want them to understand, like, what do you want them to get out of therapy, and what are you thinking would be helpful about that, right? We're going to help create a narrative so that they have an understanding of your perspective and why you think what you do. Now, if you have a kid who is like required to be mandated, if you have a kid who's like forced because of some sort of like family court thing, or, there really is kind of like a legality to them like seeking treatment, then it's really, yes, you're here for this, but what can we do to help you learn things and like gain something from this, even if it's not the exact thing that you were initially referred for, right? So even though a parent might have referred them for this particular thing, if the kid is saying no, or the kid is saying like, I'm not interested in working on that, sometimes it's helpful to find something else that they do want to work on to show them, A, they can make progress, and B, there is a buy-in. Once you create the buy-in, they might be more willing to work on those things once they know you and they trust you. But generally, I think at the end of the day, if you're forcing your kid to go to therapy, there has to be something that is so wrong that you are so worried about that you can justify that them being mad at you for forcing them to go to therapy. You will accept that because of how grievous or harmful or risk-taking or whatever the other options are, right? But if you have a kid that you're forcing to go just because, I would really consider what you're losing or what you're potentially putting up to stake in your relationship with that kid. And we know that teens that are labeled resistant, teens that are, sometimes unwilling to talk about it, there's a lot of things going on. Involve them in that conversation, right? Teens want to be part of making decisions that suit them in their lives. And sometimes there is a right time for therapy and sometimes there's not. And I don't think it's for us to decide whether or not someone absolutely should be in therapy. I think it is a conversation over the course of time. And I think there's lots of different things you can play with when you're trying to help a kid understand why therapy might be helpful, or you're trying to help a parent understand why therapy might not be helpful. And if you're a provider that's working through that and you're stuck in the middle of like, parents are saying this and the kid is saying this, come to my consultation group. We can talk more about it because it's not all black and white. It is very, very gray. So I hope that helped. Private practice can be really lonely. As a therapist who works primarily with teens, I definitely understand that. It has taken a long time for me to figure out as a therapist what I truly need from consultation and community and support. But I will tell you, the power in connecting with people that share a population or have an understanding of that is like immeasurable. Consultation with people that you trust, that you value, that you respect will absolutely save your sanity in the long run, and sometimes save you from lawsuits and other potentially poor decisions that if you didn't have an opportunity to like talk through them with other people, could have been bad. So that being said, I've been part of other consultation groups, which like have been great. They've been lovely people. They've been very supportive people. But I think when you're working with a specific high-risk population, like teens or high-risk teens in general, it can be really, really important to get connection with other people who also specialize in teens, who have the training, who like really love and appreciate and understand the population. So if this is you and you're looking for consultation, you're looking for community support of providers who work with teens, that flourish with teens, that love working with teens, you have come to the right place. So please click below, follow the links. I want to see you in the consultation group. I want to see you in the free community and building that's all about working with teens, from the business marketing perspective to the practical application of different structures and techniques to working with families and beyond. I want to connect with you. So the bigger we are, the more power we have, the better our skill set is going to be as a whole group. So I hope to see you there.